Howard Snooks, welcome.
Hi.
I
Well,
love your
thank you.
name.
There's a legend to it.
There is.
Yes.
What's the legend? Tell me.
Well, the fifth Lord Mayor of London was named William of Sevenoaks.
Yeah.
And according to the family legend, that over the generations, that turn moved from Holland to Germany, Germany to the United States in 1735, and it became Snooks from Sevenoaks.
Wow,
So,
interesting.
so I can't prove that that's true, but at least there's a legend
I
associated
love
with
it.
it.
I mean, I don't know, maybe because you know my son and my husband and you've done
Yeah.
podcasts with them. I
Right.
just feel like like we already know each other
Hmm.
and we're just here to have a great conversation and whatever is supposed to arise was going to arise.
That's what I think too.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. So, I've been doing a little bit of snooping around your story,
Hmm.
and I felt really compelled for you to come on Soul Stories because I love the idea of, hearing about people's like the difficulties they've had and how it changes them and how you find yourself within those stories.
Hmm.
And I call them the story of the soul.
Hmm.
And so I would love to take a moment or 45 minutes
Okay.
or so
Yeah.
and just hear about who are you and a little bit about your story and where you found yourself in it, because you have a really compelling story.
Okay. Yeah. Well, as a soul story, I like that idea. I think of it as if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger.
Yeah,
That's
that
sort
is
of
true.
how.
That is true.
Okay. Well, so I'm 76. I was born in Durango, Colorado, from this old ancient pioneer family on both sides. My mother and father both grew up in this little town called Bayfield, they grew up in ranches went to high school in Bayfield. And then they didn't date until a few years after high school, but they, married and lived a good long life. My mother died at age 90 in 2012, and my dad died in 2015 at 93. So they had
Amazing. Yeah.
good long lives.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was born in 1949 in Durango, the second of three children. I had a sister 5 years older, a sister 5 years younger. And Durango is a beautiful town, and
Yes,
I really, really like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Me too.
I was 2 blocks away from the in-town ski area. Like to hike. My mother's parents still had a ranch, so we used to go out, I'd say twice a month, to have Sunday dinner at the ranch with all my relatives. My sisters and I were the city cousins living in Durango. Everyone else lived on ranch.
Yeah.
Well, they thought, but they did think of us as the city cousins. So when I graduated, I went to Colorado State University to get my undergraduate degree. And that's partly because there's this thing, it's called Boys State, which is, I think the American Legion sponsored it or something, but it's designed for, they had Girls State and Boys State for people that might have an interest in political careers or anyway, just to learn about government.
Yeah.
You didn't have. And so I went to it and I liked the campus and everything. And it's the land grant university, which is where the pioneer Colorado families send their children to land grant school, not to CU. I mean, if I'd wanted to go to CU, I'm sure I could have, but I didn't. And after I graduated from CSU in 71, I had this 5th grade teacher named Mr. Burton, and he was from Maine. And he told us all these wonderful stories about New England all the time. And it just captured my attention. And so I set off for Maine to see if I could live there.
Wow.
And I searched for a job. It was one of the recessions that happened. And I couldn't really get a job in Maine, but I moved to Boston. And I got a job working as an orderly, I guess you'd say, or I don't know what else. Helping take care of patients.
Yeah.
It was a private psychiatric hospital called Wiswall Hospital. It was in Wellesley, Massachusetts. So, Wellesley's a pretty leafy, upscale place. And so it was 3 mansions that there was no sign outside or anything. Well, it turned out it wasn't as bucolic as it appeared. It was more like the cuckoo's nest.
I was just going to say, like Jack Nicholson.
It was very much like that. It was a shock
Wow.
treatment. All they did was
Oh,
shock
wow.
treatment there. And it's not, I know I'm a therapist now,
Yeah.
but you know, shock treatment, it has its place for sure.
Right.
But everyone who came in there,
Yeah.
and it was basically for blue-blooded New Englanders who had problem family members, and they would send them there.
Wow.
And it was right when patients' rights were coming up. So I ended up being a spy for the State Department of Mental Health when I was working there.
That's fascinating.
Well, the rights of the patients were not being observed,
Yeah, of
like
course.
the right to refuse treatment, the right
Right.
to have contact. You know, none of these things happen for these people.
Yeah.
And so one day there was like the old knock on the door, and in comes this team of
Wow.
investigators. And they figured out, you know, pretty soon who was the spy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I mean, there were 5 brothers or brothers and brothers-in-law. There were these 5 Irish brothers and brothers-in-law that owned the hospital. They're all psychiatrists. And the youngest one was this great guy. I really liked him. And he's the one who fired me, but he was kind of nice about
Yeah.
it. You know? But he thought that I was being, you know, kind of ignorant about how electroshock really helped people. And I still say it did help some people, but it
Not
wasn't.
that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had to obey
Right.
you can't just like take away people's rights
Right.
and shock them.
Right. And that's what they did.
Yeah. So anyway, it sort of traumatized me though. So I went back, and my parents had since moved to Farmington, New Mexico, which was in just a little south of Durango. So I spent a few months with them and, you know, kind of getting my act together, and then moved to Durango for a while and became an EMT working at the local hospital, waiting to go to graduate school. I decided I wanted to become a clinical social worker.
Okay.
So I ended up applying to Smith College, which is in Massachusetts. And yes, it is a women's undergraduate school, but the graduate school has men in it. And I got accepted. So I went back to Massachusetts, to Northampton, to go to grad school. And the way they work the program, you're just there in the summers taking coursework, and then you're sent out across the country to internships or fellowship, you know. And so I ended up in Cleveland the first year, and then the second year at University of Colorado Health Sciences Center. And so when I graduated, got my MSW, I moved back to Durango. I was local boy makes good, leaves as an EMT at the hospital, got the job as director of social work in Durango at the hospital. And my big thing that I did was I started the child protection team in Durango. This was another big movement that right when I graduated, that social service departments were getting overwhelmed, and there all this criticism about how well they were treating abused children. And so there's this review team that reviewed every case. So every county had to have this review case. So this pediatrician and I set that up. And I actually, just through circumstances, got invited to present the paper in London at the Second International Congress on Child Abuse and Neglect.
Wow.
So that was really fun.
I bet.
But then, as cool as Durango is, it's pretty isolated. And I was looking for a wife, actually. And I there were a couple, you know, that kind of happened, but I got restless. And so I decided I'm going to move back to Metro Denver. I wasn't sure where. But I ended up getting a job for Boulder Valley Public Schools and was a school social worker.
Okay.
And that is where I met my wife. She was a principal of a special needs for behaviorally disturbed children in public school in Boulder. And I was a social worker. So I met my wife. We got married in 1981. And she was a Denver girl.
Okay.
So we had 2 children. My son, Joe, he's now 43, and my daughter's 40. So my children are in their 40s, which is
hard to
sort of a shocking.
I bet.
And then we're kind of moving in towards the things that changed me, where I had to reinvent myself.
Yeah.
They both grew up. They got Joe went to University of Denver and got a job in Denver. And my daughter went to Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon, and she got a job as a Spanish teacher in Lafayette. But she got married to this other Boulder guy who had gone to Lewis and Clark. They met their first night at Lewis and Clark, I think. And so they ended up getting married a couple of years after they graduated. And they started a fly fishing apparel company. And so that was what they did.
Okay.
And then here I am. I married 34 years, and I'm feeling all content and happy, and just retired from my job. I'd had a private practice of therapy for years.
Okay.
And a big portion of it was doing child custody evaluations. So I would be court appointed if there was a dispute involved, and there were kind of, I don't know, high conflict divorces where it was hard. The parents could not decide what to do about the children. But I'd retired from that and decided to take as my retirement job working as the director of social work at the Wardenburg Student Health Service at CU. Oh. So I did that for a couple of years. Then things kind of went south between me and the director, so I retired from it. A little earlier than I expected, but things were fine. But the next year, my wife announced she was divorcing me. And it was
after 34 years.
And, you know, you always hear how men do not listen to these messages. So I guess I did it. I did not hear a message.
Yeah.
And I still got, I don't know what the message was that I should have heard. But anyway, we divorced. And it'll be almost 10 years now.
Okay.
April 5th, I think, was when the divorce was actually finalized. And I stayed in the house. And for a while, we shared custody of our dog, this little Shih Tzu, also. But it didn't work out, and I got the dog. So he was my companion, and living in the same house. It's a really nice, cool house. So I didn't really want to sell it.
Right.
And so I, did that. Well, a lot of things happened that same year. My father died at 93. I mean, it wasn't a horrible shock, but still, it changes things. My uncle surprisingly died. My older sister died. She had multiple myeloma and had gone into remission, but it came back with a vengeance. Okay. And then I had this weird accident, broke my hip. I'd met someone who lived down in Texas. I'd gone to high school with this woman, and we started a relationship. And I was at her house, and I just stepped wrong in the garage and fell against a weed whacker.
Oh my God.
So this was like the end of December. So 2015 starts February, the announcement.
A whole year. Interesting.
But and I don't know, there's a long story with it, but I had to have emergency hip replacement surgery. And
oh my God.
Then I had to stay down in Lubbock, Texas for 10 days because I couldn't fly home because danger of pneumothorax. Yeah. So I get back home. Here's my dog also, waiting.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I need a sign from the universe. Everything has changed in my life. And there's this article that said, boy, they need baby boomer models. Nobody is modeling that age, and the demographic is still so big, and they buy stuff, but there just isn't a so I thought, well, I guess that's my sign from the universe.
I love that. Most people would kind of like go past that sign, but you felt like it was your sign.
Well, I literally did ask for a sign from the universe.
That's amazing.
So I'm not saying that it was a sign, but I took it that way.
It was your sign.
And kind of an adventure, And I'd stayed in decent shape, I knew for an old guy. So I thought, well, maybe it'll work. So I got some training, and I got a portfolio, and I got an agency and stuff. And I did modeling and some commercial acting. I was in some really fun commercials. Went to Long Beach one time to do one for UC Irvine School of Medicine. I did one there. And so I had a lot of fun doing that. Yeah. Then COVID hit, and that really put a kibosh on a lot of all that stuff. And it's never really picked up for me afterwards. I've done a few different things, but it hasn't picked up so much for me. But now I started doing podcasts.
That's
So
amazing. So instead of modeling, because that kind of died because of the
I,
COVID
I mean, I
stuff.
still hope I'm still in the agent, so I may end up getting some. And I've done some auditions, haven't gotten them, or there've been ones that came up and I couldn't do it,
Right. Right.
which that I might have been able to get, but I didn't. So
Okay.
it's still there, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Wow, quite a story.
So that's my story.
Um, that year, 2015.
Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that story. And I love to hear kind of where you came from,
Hmm.
and it helps kind of see where you are now versus
Hmm.
where you were and how you grew up. And it's so I love talking and hearing about the longevity of life. And so I love that story.
Oh, I got a PhD, but on the way
Oh, you
too.
did?
Yes, but
I mean, you've had this beautiful full life.
mhm.
And that year is, often people will talk about like a year they've had
Mhm.
and how it almost changes. I mean, obviously it changes the trajectory of life.
Exactly.
And I like in Kabbalah, we talk about that as like a soul pivot.
Mhm.
It's like your soul redirecting, not that what you were doing was wrong or bad or anything. It's almost like I consider it like a soul pivot. Like you were going this direction, and then
Mhm.
your soul is now going a whole different direction, one that you never would have guessed.
Yes, I would never have guessed. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. I mean, how did you pick up all those pieces of grief?
Well, it was tough. I actually, having been a therapist, you learn about these states, like dissociative states, for example.
Yeah.
So people would describe it. So I would think I kind of understood it. I did not understand
Mm.
what a dissociative state was.
Yeah.
I felt like I had been, and that went on for a long time, months, really,
Yeah.
where I would wake up and I go, am I it? It was like I'd been in the Truman Show.
Yeah.
Remember that,
Yeah,
that
I
movie
do.
where
I
things
do.
that I thought were real weren't real?
Right.
And so I walked around and I felt like I was in this sort of bubble or something. So I could see people, but it's like they didn't seem real. Nothing
Yeah.
seemed real for a
Mhm.
long, long time. And it was a physical sensation, an unpleasant physical sensation as well.
I'm sure.
And I just had to bear it, just grit my teeth and bear it, because I thought, okay, if this is a dissociative state, it's an anxiety state.
Mhm.
Anxiety states have a beginning, middle, and end,
Uh-huh.
and I'm going to get out of this sometime. But it
Right.
didn't feel like I was going to. It was
Right.
on the basis of faith that I got out of it.
I had a year like that, and
Did you?
oh yeah, 2018. Yeah.
Say something about it if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. I mean, it has to do a little with him, my son who's sitting here. 2018, we were living in Israel, and the four of us and my husband, the four kids, and my mom was sick with cancer, and she was living in LA. And so that whole year, the year before that, I was going back and forth from Israel to LA, like 18 hours back, forth. Because I said, like, if something happens, I'm going to be there. And I was committed to it. And so I just committed, and I would fly back and forth. And finally they said, okay, we think she's dying. And ironically, we had just decided to move. And there were like circumstances that felt like we were ready to move back to the States. So we decided to move to Colorado. My husband's brother and sister live here.
Oh.
And we decided that was where we were going to live. And so before we moved, my mom was married to my stepfather. And then my dad is married to my stepmother. And January 2018, before we moved back, he had a major heart attack and ended up in one hospital in Santa Monica. So I flew back for that, and my mom was dying in another hospital. So my sister and I would travel from one hospital to another to see each parent. And it was really, really hard. We relied on each other quite a bit for that. And then my dad survived, and he's better. And in April 2018, my stepfather, I was still in Israel, my stepfather died suddenly in his sleep.
Oh, man.
And my mother was in the hospital dying and didn't know that her husband had just died out of nowhere. So that was a huge shock. So I came back for his funeral. And then I moved back in the summer of 2018, 2 weeks or even like maybe 7 days after I moved back. My mom was then dying again. And then she did die, and she passed away. Right as my kids were starting a new school, new state, and everything, my mom passed away. And I think it was always her dream that we moved back, and then I did, and then she passed. And so I always think like maybe she was just so she could go because she was so happy that we had moved back. And then at the very end of like towards mid end of 2018, my son was having challenges, and we had to put him in a therapeutic boarding school in Utah. And for me as a mom, as a daughter, both ends was the hardest year of my whole life.
And on both sides of the generations.
On both sides of the generations.
Right.
Like losing my mother and then having to put my son somewhere other than my home was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And it was more than losing my mother, right? It's my child. So that was the hardest thing I'd ever gone through.
Did you have any dissociative states or anxiety states about it?
Oh, yes.
Like it's hard to, it's worth describing it now, I think.
I agree.
When I have a client who says that, it's like, tell me what that's like. And
yes.
I don't think I gave it enough thought about what it actually felt like to go through those things.
I really like what you said about feeling like you were walking through life, but in a bubble. It was almost like this world isn't real. And I'm not really in it. And everybody else is doing their thing and going on with their lives. And I'm in this grief, anxiety, sad, scared bubble. I mean, it's exactly what you said is like being, I don't know if I was disassociative. Like, I'm not sure. I felt a lot of feelings, but it was kind of like, I don't know if I belong here.
Derealization. Maybe. Maybe that's the right word.
It was like, that's like when you said that, I really resonated with this, like, wow, my life is about to seriously change here. And it sounds like yours did as well.
Well, what I did was I relied on a few things. I went to the gym 4 times a week. I had a personal trainer that I'd already started with. And man, that guy. He helped me.
He helped you? That's amazing. Amazing.
And I had a therapist down in Denver. So I would drive to Denver and, so it was a 3-hour chunk of time. And that was really great to have that. My dog also, he was just such a great pal to me.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much what my life was I centered around the therapy, the gym, and my dog. And that was kind of what my life involved.
It's interesting. It's almost like you pared your life down a little bit.
I did.
And you allowed for these 3 important areas of your life to exist. And everything else was like this bubble, it sounds like.
Now, I thought at the time that I would find another partner. And I kind of, the woman who in Texas, she's an absolutely lovely woman, but I realized it really wasn't going. I was not going to move to Brownfield, Texas. I don't
out of
think,
Boulder.
And I don't think was going to move to Boulder. I mean, that is what it was about. But, and then there were a couple of other, women that came into my life. But at this stage in my life, I was on dating sites, which I just think
so hard.
Oh, Jesus, so hard. And so now I sort of like I'm single, and I don't have to make accommodations for anyone. And I just think at age 76, I don't know, maybe it may change. I might meet somebody and something happen. I don't know, but I don't have it as a goal at this point.
I'm curious, like being 76, if we could talk about that and all the things you went through. What is aging like as a 76-year-old in this world? Yeah,
that's a great question. They say that there are various nodal points in your life when aging sort of speeds up a little, like 44, they say is one, 60 is another. And I think 75 maybe is another one. I'm still, very healthy. I don't take any high blood pressure medication. I don't take any kind of medication.
Yeah.
But I had, skin cancer that had to be removed. There are just a few various things, ailments that. Of course. I still get around very well. I do have arthritis.
Okay.
So there's some things I can't do, but my body is changing.
Yeah.
And gravity is also.
Yeah.
But
Somehow it does that.
but somehow I don't think of myself, in my brain, it doesn't feel all that different at all.
That's amazing.
It just doesn't feel different. And my podcast is about bridging generations. So I have a big interest in how do you have authentic relationships with people from another generation.
Yeah.
And I'm at the age now, there's like, Yuta could be my grandchild.
Yeah.
And 30, somebody at 31 in their 30s could be my grandchild.
Right.
So I have two generations there. And there's this old fellow named Oak Thorne who lives in Boulder, he was a very prominent person in helping to shape Boulder how it is now. And he belongs to this club I belong to. And he's 97 and he's still going strong.
Amazing.
So I plan to interview him at some point too, because that's another generation bridge to have.
I feel like the word elder, right, is like, my dad is 79. My mom died when she was almost 70, so she died young. I have clients every age, right? I have clients in 79, 75. So I really see it. And I feel like the word elder is not used enough in our culture. I think our culture is about like, you grow up, you become 18, and then you're off to college, and then you leave your parents' house, and then you go and you have your own life and you do all these things. And I think a lot of what we do is to try and make everybody grow up and grow out. And I always feel like, what about like bridging those generations, right? Because you're going through something, or your age or your wisdom could help somebody who's 23 years old, could help a 53-year-old woman, could help in different areas. But I think that in a lot of cases, not every case, because it sounds like you are doing that, but I see that more in some of the clients that I work with, is like there's this existential loneliness that happens when, as the kids grow up and they have their own lives. And I've been doing a lot of research on homesteads.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of like, in Israel they call them kibbutz, right, where everybody lives in like a village. And America is starting to come back a little bit to that, of like gathering in our elder people and seeing them as wisdom, like they're messengers, and they are involved in like a 2-year-old's life. And I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts are on all of that.
Well, I think you're on to something.
I want to be.
Yeah, the kibbutzim were kind of a good idea.
Yeah.
But the one thing I would want to have is a mixture of ages. If there was a village or a central, co-housing had its moment maybe 30 years ago. There's still some co-housing. And I never totally understood what co-housing was, but there's a central house. And then, people have their homes in the area. Then there's a central, meeting room, and people they're responsible for preparing a meal once a month. And then there's, I don't have it totally down exactly, but it is like there's a hive sort of piece to it.
Yeah.
And the idea was to have people from all different generations, so older people and stuff. And when I was a kid, I knew my great grandparents. They had a ranch, and they moved into town, but I remember they died. One died when I was 8, the other night when I was 9, but I have memories of them. But my other grandparents were there, all my aunts and uncles and cousins and great aunts. And so I felt some of that.
That's amazing.
That feeling.
Yeah, I think we should bring it back.
I agree. I definitely agree. Like one of the things that I examine in my podcast is, what are the problems with that? And old people getting set in their ways and going, young people, get off my yard.
Right.
That's right. They're grouchy.
Yeah.
And they also, they feel a sense of loss. I
think it's a lot of grief.
There's loneliness, and then there's also a loss of feeling a part of the community.
Right.
I think.
Or purposeful, maybe.
Yeah. The purpose, the search for meaning has somehow gone awry, I would say.
Yeah. So that brings up 2 questions. One is totally random. I'll ask that after. But in terms of the search for meaning, do you feel like you are or have lived your soul's purpose?
Well, I wake up cheerful in the morning.
I love that.
So I think that I'm on to something.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I think of that's such a big term. What
It's
is my
such a
soul
big
searching?
term. I was wondering how you would unpack that.
Right. But I've definitely done some soul searching in my life. I've been in intensive therapy,
Yeah.
and I also had a psilocybin journey one time.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
thought that was very helpful.
Yeah, very.
Do you want to hear what I finally concluded? I have this.
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot more to it, but this sort of struck me. At one point, I was sort of like in the position of being Saint George fighting the dragon. I don't know if you know that, but he's on a horse and this dragon, and he was fighting. And then I felt I had a sour stomach. I had heartburn. I was going, here I am fighting a dragon, and I have heartburn that I'm having to deal with. What am I going to do?
Wow.
And then this was a one-person, guided. So I was on a pallet with my eyes covered, and there's a guide there. And I thought, maybe I could ask her if she had an antacid.
This is all in your journey.
But you're not in a dream exactly. You're having the hallucination, but I'm still aware. So I opened my eyes and I said, do you have any antacids? And she goes, of course I do. And she went and got me.
That's so nice.
And I realized I don't have to do everything myself. See, I think this was one of the, in terms of a soul journey, why did I think I had to do everything myself? Well, it's because people didn't help me much when I needed help sometimes, but that didn't mean I wasn't able to ask for help. So that was a big shift for me.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of research out there about doing plant medicine, especially. I know I can't remember the name of it. There was something on Netflix maybe about doing psilocybin journeys when people are dying. Mm-hmm. And it's using it as a life review. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so powerful to kind of look into your, whatever comes up is supposed to come up for your healing and your medicine. But to see oh, why did I think I had to do it on my own? Mm-hmm. Maybe that changes how you live now. Right. I love the idea that you're doing a podcast now, and and I think this podcast community, because we're both kind of in it, is so beautiful. It's so connecting. Maybe you and I would never have met on the street, but we get to know each other's story. And to me, it's like I make a new friend every time I do a podcast.
Yeah, me too. And I never did listen to podcasts. I knew about podcasts, but I wasn't really one of those, manosphere guys, Joe Rogan and stuff. I just wasn't into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But now I'm getting into it. I'm glad I did.
I'm glad you did too. Yeah. So I have a question that might be a little intense because I tend to go intense.
Okay.
I like to ask my elders what their concept of death is.
Oh.
What are the ideas? I mean, I think for me, I'll be 54 in a month. 50, as I turned 50, there was this shift in my body, but shift of whoa, okay, I'm not 30. Mm-hmm. And there was a midlife shift of wow, well, I'm not 30, I'm not 20, I'm not even 40 anymore. So who do I want to be? And what happens? I probably have been asking myself that forever because I'm that kind of person. But what do I think of death? And I'm curious if that comes up in this life stage at all, or is it something you push aside, or do you? I don't know. That's too personal.
Well, no, I'll start on the borders and I'll move in as intensely as I can.
Okay.
Honestly. Well, for one thing, living where I did, where there's 5 generations of my family. There's a 6th generation that's buried elsewhere, but 5 generations are buried in this one small cemetery in Mayfield. So I think I have 38 relatives that are buried there.
Wow.
And I have 2 cousins that one's just my age. We grew up together. Then her sister, who's 5 years older, that was the same age as my sister. And they're widowed and they live together, and they're my favorite relatives of all time. But they go every year to, on Memorial Day, which
Mhm.
my grandparents called Decoration Day.
Uh-huh.
You go to the cemetery and you put flowers on all the
Yeah.
graves, and they still do that.
Mm.
And well, where are you going to be buried, Howard? They just asked me. Oh God. I mean, when I
Maybe
was
you're too busy
married,
living.
when I was married, I knew I was going to where he was going to be buried.
Yeah.
It's going to be in Denver, the like
Oh, Fairmount.
Fairmount.
I lived across the street from there.
Oh,
I used to.
oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because my wife's family had a burial plot, and I thought, well, it makes more sense to be buried here where I live my life than down in Bayville. But now maybe I should be buried down.
Mm.
And it's sort of a cozy thought.
Like it makes you feel
Yeah.
comfortable to
Yes,
know that.
it's a cozy thought that
I
I'll
like
be
that.
buried.
I like that. I mean, I think we all have to figure out how to make it work for us to get to
Mhm.
that level,
Mhm.
right? And we have to work with who we are
Mhm.
and how we've been. And there's a idea in Kabbalah that when you die, your soul is like a computer, and it takes all that information that all your
Mhm.
life, right? And it pulls all that information up
Mhm.
to this like soul.
Mhm.
And then the soul travels and moves on to the next world.
Mhm.
And, how we live is sometimes how we die. And I feel like what you're telling, I love what you say to me. Like, I feel like it feels cozy.
Mhm.
It feels comfortable, right? So maybe that's what you need to think about in order to get to that place. And also I do do a lot of intuitive guidance. And like what I hear is you're too busy living.
Oh, right.
I mean, you're so
Right.
busy living. Like,
Right.
I mean, as Jews, we say like, we live life fully, like to
Mhm.
life. We
Mhm.
fully live this life.
Mhm.
And like, to me, you're a perfect example of somebody who had a really difficult year of deep grief and deep pivoting. And you've reinvented yourself several times. And you're busy communicating and bridging generations and bridging gaps. And maybe that is your version of what happens after death or during death.
Well, I remember when I was in high school, these two very popular high school girls were killed in a car wreck.
Mm.
It was just shock. Oh
Yeah.
my God, how can that be? Now when friends die, and I go, oh,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the same. I
Right.
will miss them, but I don't have this horrified feeling that they
Yeah.
died. I
Yeah.
feel like they died. But,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what
Very
happens.
different. Very
And
different.
I mean, I have sort of theories about a next life or like a rejoining of the universe sort of thing. I have ideas like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I kind of think that's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I don't.
I just think you're so busy living.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's very impressive to see somebody that is reaching out to others. You live by yourself, but I don't see you as ever alone.
No, I do. I have a lot of friends.
Yeah.
I stay very engaged and active.
Yeah.
I like to be alone. I mean, I like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like to sit by my fireplace,
It's so nice.
doom scrolling or reading.
Right. Doom scrolling. Everybody has to doom scroll.
I know. But I like that a lot, just to be by myself.
That's
like that.
beautiful.
But I definitely am not alone all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I really like to engage with people.
Yeah. You can really tell that
Yeah.
you're really engaged. I was wondering why I felt so comfortable with you. And I thought, well, maybe it's because you met my husband and my son.
Mhm.
And when you sat down, I wish I could show you a picture. You kind of remind me of my grandfather.
Oh, really?
Yes. I mean, he died 30 years ago,
Yeah.
but like
Right.
the same like enthusiasm until he did get sick, but the same just kind of like, here we are and we're going to live this
Mhm.
fully. And he was just an amazing man.
Well, what a cool. I thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm quite touched by that.
Yeah, he was, and he still is to me. Like I feel him often, and but just he lived his life fully, taking care of his people and doing good in the world,
Mm.
always making sure he was connecting and doing good in the
Mitzvahs.
world. Yeah, doing the mitzvahs. Are you Jewish?
People think
I mean, you even said kibbutzim.
right.
And I was like, oh, wait a second.
Well, I was telling your husband when he interviewed me, I passed as Jewish in Great Neck, Long Island, at Hyman Heimawitz's house, dating his daughter. So
Wow. I mean, you really, like, you
I
had me
have-
fooled for a second. I thought, I didn't know this.
No, I actually got into genealogy because
Oh.
people had always thought, when I was younger, it was always Elliot Gould. 'Cause I
Uh-huh.
looked like Elliot Gould.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's Sam Waterston.
Mm.
That's who it is. I don't think he's Jewish. But anyway, because of this, you look Jewish. I decided to, because I would
Embrace
ask,
it.
I'd ask my relatives, well, where did our family come from?
Yeah.
We've always been here. Well, that it can't be true.
Right. That's what they say to me in LA. We're
We've
like
always-
seventh generation. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, but you came from somewhere.
Right. So I found out, but I'm Northern European, basically.
Okay.
I'm English, German, Scandinavian,
Mm-hmm.
Irish. I'm 51% Irish. Although they say if you go to Ireland and say that, it's
They
not the
won't.
thing to say. They don't like. So
Oh.
so you think you're Irish? now?
Right. Right.
No. So I-
So
But
funny.
anyway, I
That's
sort of
nice.
liked finding out I was 51% Irish.
That's nice.
But no, I'm not Jewish at
Not
all. but
Jewish, but you say kibbutzim.
I know.
I
Well,
love it.
Well, social work is kind of a Jewish profession.
Yeah,
I
it
think,
is. I'm a
anyway.
social worker too by trade.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I
But
got
you-
my MSW when I was in my 20s.
Where did you go?
I went to Long Beach State.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
cool.
yeah.
Well, I ended up getting my PhD in clinical social work. I went that
Oh,
far.
wow. Okay.
And I'll just say this briefly. My ex-wife was in education administration. She was in a PhD program,
Yeah.
and we were been married just a few years. Had one child, and she says, "I hate this program. I don't want to do it." I said, "Oh no, you should get your PhD." She said, "Well, if you're so excited about PhDs, why don't you get one?" And I said, "That is what I meant." So
That's
I
amazing.
did go ahead and do
So
it.
you did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still practice? Do you have a private practice?
I have a small life
Okay.
coaching practice, but
Okay.
I don't call myself a therapist
Okay.
anymore.
Okay.
I think I still use the same therapeutic techniques. but I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
So just enough to because
Keep you busy.
I liked being a
Yeah.
therapist a lot.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you for coming on here. And
Sure.
I feel like we had this like beautiful conversation. And I guess to sum it up, I love this idea that in Kabbalah and Judaism, we talk about the things that have happened to us kind of shatter the pieces of our soul.
hmm
Right? I'm all about the soul.
hmm
And our job is to go find it. We go searching for those pieces, maybe not consciously,
Yeah.
but our job is to go put those pieces back together because we're not broken. We're just kind of scattered.
hmm
And I feel like what you've done, Howard, is you've taken something that has happened to you that's been really hard and kept you in that deep bubble for a bit. And maybe you wouldn't explain that in those words, but I feel like you put those pieces back together.
No, I would explain. I would use those words.
I like
Yeah.
I like that
Yeah.
idea. Like
Yeah.
I believe the soul's whole.
Mhm.
And when I see you sitting across from me, I see a whole soul. Somebody
thank you.
who's, who's lived a full life and has gone up and down and been fragmented and has pulled his life back together and created a new story for himself several times.
And it did feel it was hard work. I mean, I had to muscle
Yes,
those pieces back.
absolutely.
It wasn't just they sort of fall
Fell
into places
into,
like
right.
just like that. That's how I had to
Absolutely.
do it.
Absolutely. And it's commendable.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So
Thank
thank you for coming on to my podcast.
My pleasure.